Let me ask you something real, ... Have you ever looked around your circle and wondered, who here is actually for me? We grow up with this idea that evil comes dressed in horns, red skin, and a pitchfork. But the truth, the real devil shows up with a smile, calls you bro, cracks a joke, and sits across from you at dinner. It's not always a stranger lurking in the dark. Sometimes, it's the one who knows your secrets, who celebrates your wins, who shows up when everyone else walks away. But here's the warning, not every presence is a blessing. Not every bro is your brother. Some of the most destructive forces in your life don't come screaming or slamming doors. They come with comforting words, long histories, and familiar faces. You've been praying for peace. While passing the bread to chaos, you've been searching for clarity. While lying beside sabotage, and I know that hits hard, because we want to believe that the people we love are the people we can trust. But what if I told you, not every friend was sent by God? Some were sent to distract you, delay you, and drain you dry. They're not always enemies in plain sight. They might not even know they're hurting you, but the impact is real. Your energy shifts, your peace fades. Your spirit tenses up when they walk in the room, but you brush it off. They're just having a bad day. They've always been like this. Listen to me. You cannot ignore the signs just because they wear the mask of love. You can't excuse the chaos just because it came wrapped in loyalty. Ask yourself, why do I feel more drained after being with them? Why do I feel unseen, unworthy, or anxious around someone I've known for years? These aren't coincidences. They're spiritual signals. Discernment isn't paranoia. It's protection. You see, spiritual warfare doesn't always look like big, obvious battles. Sometimes, it's quiet, subtle, hidden in plain sight. It shows up in emotional manipulation, in guilt tripping, in the way you're made to feel wrong for setting boundaries or growing past your past. And here's the hardest part. Sometimes, the person doing the most damage is the one you love the most. It's not easy to face. Because we think, but we've been through so much together. They were there when I had nothing. We go way back. Yes, all true. But just because someone started with you doesn't mean they're meant to finish with you. Just because they were a part of your history doesn't mean they deserve a seat in your future. Let me be clear, this isn't about hating people. It's about healing yourself. It's about protecting the peace that God is trying to build. In you, some people weren't sent to love you. They were sent to test you. To see if you've grown enough to choose peace over comfort. To choose discernment over guilt. To choose your soul over shared history. So today, take a deep breath, look around your table, and ask yourself, who's feeding me life and who's quietly feeding on my light? Because not everyone who walks with you is walking for you, and not everyone who claps is clapping out of joy. That your circle is sacred, your peace is precious. Protect both ruthlessly. This isn't just personal growth, this is spiritual survival. Me ask you something, ... Have you ever walked into a room, and without anyone saying a word, you just felt heavy, like something invisible settled on your shoulders? The air shifts, your chest tightens. You can't explain it, but you feel it. That's not anxiety. That's not paranoia. That ... is presence. See, energy never lies. People do. They can smile in your face, say all the right things, hug you tight, and call you family. But their energy will always tell the truth. When their words don't, most of us were never taught how to read that truth. We were told to be polite, to be understanding, to give people the benefit of the doubt. But what if your spirit already picked up what your mind hasn't labeled yet? What if that discomfort you feel around someone is actually wisdom in disguise? Because your body knows, your spirit knows. When your muscles tense up every time a certain person calls, when your peace disappears the second they walk in the room, that's not coincidence. That's a warning. We live in a world that teaches us to trust logic over intuition. But some truths can't be seen, they can only be felt. You see, your emotions and your body are like a spiritual alarm system. And the more you ignore it, the louder it will scream. But here's the hard truth. Loyalty can blind you. Just because you've known someone forever doesn't mean they're safe for your soul. Not every long relationship is a healthy one. Some of the most toxic energy you'll ever encounter comes dressed in history and shared memories. We love to say, they've always been there for me. But ask yourself this, when they're there, are you better or are you drained? Sometimes, you're not growing because you're still planting your energy in poison soil. And the most dangerous energies, they hide behind compliments. They wrap jealousy in soft concern. They disguise envy as advice. Watch how people react when you start to rise. Do they celebrate your growth or make you feel guilty for it? You hit a new milestone, and suddenly they're distant. You share good news, and they downplay it. They say things like, don't forget where you came from, not to keep you humble, but to keep you small. Energy doesn't lie. It whispers truths your mind doesn't want to hear. It reveals the heart behind the handshake. And it never shows up in isolation. It always comes with a feeling. Pay attention to the shift in the atmosphere, not just the words in the conversation. So many of us keep letting the wrong people stay in our lives. Not because we don't know better, but because we keep silencing our inner voice in the name of keeping the peace. But peace that costs you your inner peace isn't peace at all. This isn't about cutting everyone off. This is about cultivating spiritual discernment, learning to trust that quiet nudge inside, that subtle but undeniable feeling that says, something's not right here. You don't need proof to walk away from what your spirit already exposed, because your soul knows before your mind catches up. So today, I invite you to start listening, to stop brushing off the tension, the tightness, the unease. Start treating those sensations not as paranoia, but as guidance. Because when your spirit speaks, it's not just talking, it's protecting. Let's get real for a moment. Have you ever had someone make a joke that didn't feel so funny? You smiled on the outside, but inside, something in you shrank. They said it was just teasing, just being honest, just trying to help. But the truth, their words made you second-guess yourself, doubt your progress, diminish your shine. That is how spiritual sabotage works. And here's the hardest part. It doesn't always come from enemies. It often comes from the people sitting closest to you. They don't yell. They whisper. They wrap criticism in comedy. They lace jealousy in friendly advice. They say things like, oh, look who's all successful now. Don't forget where you came from. You've changed. And it's not what they're saying, it's how they say it. There's a tone, a tension, a subtle message beneath the words. Don't rise too high, or you'll make me feel small. Listen, real love doesn't make you shrink. True friendship doesn't force you to dim your light just so others can feel comfortable. If someone only supports you when you're struggling but gets distant, sarcastic or critical when you're thriving, that's not love. And a control mechanism. Because when you shine, it exposes their shadows. When you grow, it reminds them they're standing still. So instead of rising with you, they try to pull you back down. Not always with actions, but with carefully chosen words that pierce in silence. Let me say this loud and clear. Kindness does not require self-betrayal. Love does not demand self-abandonment. If you have to constantly apologize for evolving, if you're made to feel guilty for choosing peace, setting boundaries, or wanting more, that's not connection. That's manipulation. Sometimes, you're not being too sensitive. You're just finally becoming spiritually aware. The truth is, some people fell in love with the broken version of you. They liked you better when you were uncertain, dependent, always asking for permission. It made them feel strong. It made them feel needed. But now, you're healing. You're growing. You're walking taller, glowing brighter, dreaming bigger, and they don't know how to handle it. So they start dropping seeds of doubt in your soil. Not enough to look cruel. Just enough to make you second-guess your roots. But here's what you need to remember. Love lifts. It empowers. It celebrates your expansion. Love says, go further. Not come back to where I'm stuck. You are not responsible for other people's insecurities. You don't owe anyone your dimmed light to make them feel okay in their shadows. And you certainly don't need to explain your growth to those who refuse to grow with you. Protect your peace. Guard your purpose. Because the people who truly love you will never ask you to shrink in order to stay close. They'll rise with you. They'll clap when you win. They'll push you forward even when it means watching you pass them. So the next time someone jokes in a way that makes you feel small, pause, breathe, listen to your spirit. Because behind the laughter, there might be a wound they're trying to inflict on you, because they haven't healed it in themselves. You are not here to play small. You are here to grow, to evolve, to shine. And the right people, they'll never be afraid of your light. Me ask you something. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt drained, like your light dimmed just a little? No shouting, no name calling, no open disrespect. Just a quiet shift, a sigh, a lingering tension, a look in their eyes that didn't match their words. See, toxicity doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it whispers, and the scariest part, it often comes from someone you care about. The truth is, people who are closest to you know exactly where to hit. Not with fists, but with phrases, with sarcasm, with emotional jabs dressed as concern or honesty. They'll say things like, oh, you think you're better now? Don't forget where you came from. You've changed. But it's not said with love or pride. It's said with suspicion, with resentment, with a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. These aren't just words, they're weapons. Weapons aimed not at your body but at your confidence, your identity, your worth. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe them. You'll second-guess your growth. You'll shrink your success. You'll start apologizing for healing, for evolving, for doing the very thing your soul was meant to do. This is how spiritual sabotage works. It's not about yelling. It's about control. It's about guilt. It's about keeping you small enough so they can feel big. But real love, doesn't operate like that. Real love says, I see you rising, and I'm proud of you. Toxic love says, don't go too far, you might outgrow me. One empowers, the other manipulates, and here's how you know the difference. If you constantly walk on eggshells around someone, if their silence feels like punishment, if their support feels conditional, that's not healthy. That's control. Sometimes, they won't even need to say anything. You'll feel it in the pause. In the sigh after your success story. In the fake smile when you share your dream. That's energy speaking louder than any compliment ever could. Because here's the truth. You can't heal in a place that keeps reopening your wounds. You can't grow in an environment that thrives on keeping you insecure, and you can't thrive in relationships that only love you. When you're losing, some people only feel comfortable when you're broken, because when you rise, they have to confront their own stagnation, and they don't want to. So instead, they'll try to bring you back down. But hear me, ... You were not created to play small. You were not put on this earth to keep others comfortable in their complacency. We're made to shine, to expand, to evolve. And if that makes certain people uncomfortable, let it. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Because any love that makes you question your worth, that uses your past against you, that makes you feel like too much or not enough, that's not love. That's emotional manipulation in disguise. You deserve relationships that feel safe, that celebrate your wins, that challenge you in truth but never tear you down in disguise. So the next time someone throws a joke at your growth, or uses your past as a leash, or makes you feel guilty for becoming stronger, ... Pause, take a breath, and remember, real love doesn't clip your wings. It helps you fly. Let's talk about something we don't talk about enough, emotional manipulation. See, not all control looks like shouting or threats. Sometimes, the most powerful form of manipulation is silence followed by a carefully placed sigh, a guilt trip, a reminder that sounds like, after everything I've done for you. Sound familiar? If you've ever felt like you had to earn your place in someone's life, if you've ever felt obligated to stay because of all the sacrifices they keep reminding you about, then you've probably been caught in a toxic loop, a cycle built not on love, but on emotional leverage. And the scariest part, it often feels like love, because it comes dressed in loyalty, in shared history, in moments when they showed up for you in your darkest hour. But here's the thing, ... Manipulators don't show up to love you, they show up to own you. They come alive when you're weak, but disappear when you're strong. They check in when you're crying but fall silent when you're rising. Why? Because your strength doesn't serve their story. Your independence doesn't fit their need to feel needed. They don't want love, they want control, and they use guilt as their currency. They say things like, "You've changed. You don't call like you used to, so I guess you're too good for us now." But the moment you try to explain yourself, apologize, make it right, they win. Because now you're shrinking again. Now you're walking on eggshells. Now you're prioritizing their comfort over your clarity. That's not peace. That's spiritual exhaustion. Let me tell you something real. You're not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because someone's been draining you emotionally, slowly, silently, and skillfully. They don't need chains. They use your kindness. They twist your compassion. They take your loyalty and turn it into a leash. And the more you grow, the tighter they pull. But here's the truth you need to hear today. Real love doesn't manipulate. It doesn't make you feel small for evolving. It doesn't guilt you into staying stuck. Healthy love celebrates your boundaries. Toxic love breaks them and blames you for bleeding. So what do you do when someone keeps using the past as a weapon? When help turns into obligation? When love feels more like emotional debt? You reclaim your power. You stop paying for a relationship that charges your soul but never deposits back into it. Because here's the thing, manipulation thrives in silence. It feeds on your hesitation. It grows in your guilt. But the moment you name it, it loses its grip. The moment you stop explaining yourself, ... Stop apologizing for choosing peace. Stop carrying the weight of someone else's comfort. You break the cycle. This isn't easy. You might lose people, but you'll find yourself. And that trade is always worth it. So if you've been walking through life tired, unsure why, if your spirit feels heavy, but your calendar looks normal, take a closer look. Because exhaustion isn't always from overworking. Sometimes it's from overgiving. Two people who only show up when they can control the narrative. You deserve more. You deserve peace that doesn't come with a price tag. You deserve love that sets you free, not one that locks you in with guilt. Let's get honest. Some people only love you when you're weak. When you were down, they were there. When you cried, they answered. When you were confused, they had advice. But now that you're healing, now that you're standing on your own, they've changed, haven't they? They're distant, dismissive, suddenly critical, and you're left wondering, what happened? I thought they were my support system. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. They didn't love you. They loved feeling needed. And the moment you stopped needing them, they started resenting you. This kind of person shows up when you're broken but disappears when you start to rebuild. They played the role of the caretaker, the wise advisor, the ride or die. But that was never about your healing. It was about their identity. You being broken made them feel important. You being unsure made them feel wise. You depending on them gave them a purpose. But when you started trusting yourself, when you started shining without their input, they panicked. So now their words have shifted. They no longer say, "I believe in you." They say, "Don't move too fast, be careful. Remember what happened last time." It sounds like concern, But if you listen closely, it's fear. Not fear for you. Fear of losing the version of you they were comfortable with. Because here's what's really happening. Your growth threatens the control they once had. Your independence means they're no longer the hero of your story. And that's hard for people who built their self-worth around your pain. Let me say this clearly. Real love supports your healing. It claps when you grow. It celebrates your strength. It encourages your transformation. But false love, it's addicted to your struggle. It thrives on you being unsure. It doesn't know how to handle your power. It tries to shrink it. Some people don't want you whole. Not because they hate you, but because your wholeness makes them question what they've done with their own brokenness. It's not friendship. It's a dependency disguised as care. They'll dress it up with sweet words and worried tones, but underneath it all is a silent plea. Please go back to the version of you that needed me. But you can't go back. Not after all the work you've done. Not after all the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if you'd ever feel strong again. You earned this version of you. And no one has the right to guilt you out of it. So if someone starts questioning your progress, if they make you feel bad for standing tall, if they pull away the moment you stop leaning on them, that's your signal. Their care was conditional. Their love had limits. And their presence was never about you, it was about what you gave them. It's painful to accept, but freeing once you do. You are not responsible for someone else's discomfort with your growth. You are not obligated to remain broken so someone else can feel valuable. Your healing is not a betrayal, it's a breakthrough. Those who only clapped when you cried fall away. Because the ones who are truly for you, they'll celebrate when you rise, even if it means they're no longer the center of your storm. Let's take a moment and talk about something that could save you. Years of heartache, patterns never lie, but people often do. You see, we're taught to listen to words, to wait for apologies, to give second chances, sometimes third, fourth, and even 10th chances. But the truth, words are rehearsed, behavior is revealed. The real truth isn't in the apology. It's in what happens after. Because anyone can say, I'm sorry. Anyone can cry, promise change, and act remorseful for a moment. But if their actions don't change, neither have they. And that's the trap so many of us fall into. We fall for potential, we fall for promises, we fall for who we hope someone will become, while ignoring who they keep proving themselves to be. Let me say this clearly. Potential won't protect your peace. Consistency will. If someone has shown you the same harmful pattern over and over, believe it. That's not bad luck. That's not just how they are. That's a cycle, and cycles don't break with words. They break with action. Real, sustained, uncomfortable growth. But manipulators, they don't grow, they spin. Like a broken compass. One moment they're pulling you in with love, support, and sweet gestures. The next, they're tearing you down with guilt, passive aggression, or silence. Just enough chaos to keep you confused. Just enough comfort to keep you coming back. And the scariest part, they don't always do it out of hate. Sometimes, they do it out of fear of losing control over you. But here's how you know who someone truly is. Watch how they talk about other people. If they gossip with you, they gossip about you. If they betray someone else and justify it, your turn is coming. If they constantly criticize others behind their back, don't fool yourself, they're doing the same with your name when you're not in the room. Character is revealed not in big moments, but in quiet habits. It's in how they treat the waitress, how they talk when they think no one's watching. It's in what they do when you're not useful to them anymore. We love to believe that someone will change because we want them to. But you can't build a future on fantasy. You can't heal in a relationship built on hope. When the reality keeps wounding you, stop falling in love with someone's potential. Start looking at the truth they've shown you again and again. Because here's the honest truth. Your peace is too expensive to keep buying recycled pain. Your purpose is too sacred to stay stuck in loops that drain your soul. This is not about being cold. It's about being clear. You are allowed to walk away from patterns that keep cutting you. You are allowed to stop explaining why someone's almost good enough isn't good enough anymore. You deserve relationships that feel safe. People who don't just say the right thing once, but live the right way consistently. So if someone keeps hurting you, then apologizing, then doing it again. If you feel like you're on a merry-go-round of hope and disappointment, it's time to step off. Not with bitterness, but with wisdom. Because peace doesn't come from waiting for someone to become who they promised. It comes from accepting who they actually are. Choosing yourself anyway. Have you ever felt off around someone, but couldn't quite explain why? There was no fight, no harsh words, no obvious red flags. And yet something inside you felt tense. Your chest got heavy. Your energy shifted. And you told yourself, maybe I'm just being overly sensitive. But what if I told you, you weren't being sensitive? You were being spiritually aware. That feeling, that unshakable unease, it wasn't anxiety. It was your spirit recognizing. AMISALIGNMENT.C. We've been trained to trust logic over intuition, to explain away our gut feelings, to keep the peace, smile through the discomfort, and avoid rocking the boat. But your soul knows what your mind hasn't processed yet. That heaviness you feel when someone walks into the room. That's not drama. That's discernment. That's your spirit whispering. This frequency does not match your purpose. You are energy. Everything around you is energy. And when someone's presence disturbs your peace without a word being spoken, that's not paranoia. That's alignment being disrupted. But here's where it gets dangerous. We ignore it, we dismiss it. We convince ourselves it's nothing. Why? Because we don't want to seem unkind. Because we've been taught to prioritize harmony with others even if it means abandoning harmony within ourselves. But let me tell you something that could change your life. Keeping the peace with others at the expense of your inner peace is not peace. It's self-betrayal, and the soul can only be ignored for so long. The more you silence that quiet voice within, the louder the consequences become. That gut feeling you brushed off, it turns into confusion, into heartbreak, into regret. You look back and say, I knew something felt off. But by then, the damage is already done. So what if, instead of waiting for proof, you simply believed the first whisper? What if you started honoring your intuition like it was divine guidance? Because the truth is, your spirit speaks before your mind makes sense of it. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it just knows. You can feel it in your body, in the way you hold your breath when they call, in how your shoulders tighten when their name shows up on your screen, in how your joy slowly shrinks after spending time with them. That's your inner warning system, not built on fear, but built on truth. Some people will never show you their true intentions with words, but their energy will always speak first. So don't wait for betrayal to validate what your soul already knows. Don't wait for chaos to justify the calm you gave up. Start trusting your own frequency. If peace leaves when they arrive, believe that. If your light dims when you're with them, believe that. If your heart feels heavier every time you say yes to something that should have been a no, believe that. Because discernment isn't judgment, it's protection. It's God whispering, this isn't for you. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for honoring your intuition. You don't need hard evidence to walk away from what your spirit already told you was wrong. So here's your reminder. The next time your spirit speaks, don't silence it. Don't apologize for it. Don't negotiate with it. Because while your ears may hear words, your soul hears truth. And it always speaks. First, let's get real for a second. You can't soar while you're still tied to people who keep pulling you down. You can't step into your future if you're still anchored to relationships that drain your spirit, cloud your vision, and rob you of peace. And maybe no one's told you this before, but I will. You don't owe anyone your soul. You don't owe anyone your silence, your peace, your light, your continued suffering just to make them comfortable. There comes a moment in every journey, a sacred turning point where you realize, I can't carry this anymore. Not the guilt, not the obligation, not the fear of disappointing people who were never really rooting for you in the first place. And when that moment comes, you have two choices. You can shrink, or you can rise. You can keep pretending the energy isn't off, or you can cleanse it completely. Because here's the truth that most people avoid. Some connections aren't meant to be healed. They're meant to be released. Not every relationship is sacred. Not every history is holy. Not every familiar face is aligned with your destiny. There are people you're still trying to keep around out of loyalty. When God already gave you the signs to let them go. You're trying to make peace with chaos. Trying to love people who only know how to take, trying to hold hands with souls that are tied to your downfall, not your breakthrough. But hear me clearly. You cannot elevate while carrying dead weight. Your healing requires space. Your growth requires separation, and your peace. It requires protection. So yes, it's time. Time to purge. Time to clear out what no longer serves your spirit. Time to cleanse your emotional, spiritual, and relational space. This is your soul. We're talking about your future, your calling. And you don't need permission to protect it. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to apologize for the distance. You don't need to feel guilty for finally choosing you. Because choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred. It means you're finally honoring the divine in you. It means you're no longer sacrificing your spirit for people who refuse to respect it. So let this be your moment of clarity. Say it out loud if you have to. Enough. Enough of the guilt. Enough of the cycles. Enough of shrinking yourself just to be tolerated in rooms you were never meant to stay in. It's time to start discerning. To separate what is divine from what is destructive, because your future depends on it. You were not created to live trapped in the same emotional patterns. You were not born to settle in survival mode. You were made to thrive, to grow, to rise, in clarity and power. So from this day forward, move differently. Move with strength, move with stillness, move with bold clarity, and don't ever apologize for protecting your peace again.